Member for Nevis 2.
Madam President, I rise to move that the bill shortly entitled Nevis Appropriation 2024 Bill 2023 be read a second time and to commence the debate. It is, of course, traditional that on this occasion there is the budget address. And so with your leave, Madam President, I would like to read into the record of this Assembly the budget address for 2023, but which speaks to the plans and programs of the Nevis Island Administration for the fiscal year January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. Before I start, Madam President, please allow me to join you in welcoming all who are here in the gallery, but especially our youth parliamentarians. And on the outside, I encountered our former president of this assembly, the Honorable Farrell Smitten. And I recall, as you spoke, the excellent work that he had done with the youth parliamentarians over the years, which work is now being continued by you. And so I commend the former president for that work, and certainly commend you, Madam President. And as I said to the youngsters outside, it is really time that they prepare themselves to be in here in a very real way. And one at least promised me that in 2 years, he'll be here. So I look forward to that very much. Madam President, it is an honor and privilege for me this morning to rise and to present this budget under the theme, Investing for Growth, Building the Framework to Support a Resilient and Sustainable Economy. This theme builds on the strategy adopted in my budget presentation earlier this year. You will recall, Madam President, that because of the election late last year, we would have had no budget read last year and would have done so early this year. So this is the second time we're troubling you with the budget this year. Here the focus is again placed on transforming our economy in a way that will facilitate growth and resilience. Today, after having a series of consultations with stakeholders, such as our realtors, small business owners, the financial services sector, our local banks, and the Chamber of Industry and Commerce Nevis chapter, I seek to present a plan to move our economy forward in a sustainable manner, embodying the ideas garnered from these very fruitful meetings. Each year we continue to build on our framework for development, which involves harmonizing the policies of the administration with the plans of these private sector partners in a way that stabilizes the economic environment and fosters sustainable growth. Earlier this year, we celebrated our 40th anniversary of independence under a theme which highlighted growth and sustainability as the founding principles of our achievements. There's no doubt that we have indeed come a long way as a young developing nation. I assure you that even brighter days lie ahead. As we continue our economic reset, we must implement measures to enhance economic stabilization in the short term, while simultaneously reinforcing the foundation for economic expansion in the medium to long term. This objective is already on track as we continue to see a rebound in our recurrent revenue collections over the past year. And quite noticeable is the increase in the value-added tax, VAT as we call it, on domestic goods and services, which is always a prime measure of the economic health of our domestic economy. Madam President, as we look forward, we are compelled to take the necessary steps to rebuild our economy in a sustainable way. The priority for this government over the medium term will be a focus on agricultural sustainability, tourism and real estate development, communication and information technology development, renewable energy, financial services, entertainment, and light manufacturing. Even as we witness the improvement in the tourism sector, the economic and social setbacks over the past 4 years have shown us that we must seek to diversify our economy to dilute our principal reliance on tourism. Hence, we must strengthen and encourage the growth of the construction sector along with activities in our manufacturing sector. We must increase our investment in agriculture to achieve food sovereignty and continue to pursue the development of alternative energy sources in our quest for energy sustainability. We must attract new and diversified service-oriented business entities, continue to promote Nevis as a destination for filming, and deepen and expand our reach to position Nevis as a well-regulated financial services center. In a similar manner, we must undertake fiscal reforms to prioritize our revenue and control expenditure, ultimately leading to debt sustainability and growth. We must further commit resources to our infrastructural development, which includes our roads and our telecommunications infrastructure. We will seek to work with our telecommunications service providers to ensure that they can support our thrust in further developing this service-oriented business sector. We will continue to invest in education and skills training at all levels to supply the quality skills needed for employment. Our technical vocation education program will be brought into sharp focus as the main driver of the skilled labor force required to support this new thrust. We will continue to invest in our healthcare system and other attributes that will enhance the productive capacity of our people. Further, as part of our developmental strategy, we will continue to initiate programs to deliberately stimulate employment in these emerging sectors. Special emphasis will be placed on our small business sector. Small businesses, Madam President, serve a pivotal role in the development of our economy. Even as we advance our economy, Madam President, we must ensure that our most vulnerable are not left behind. Our Social Services Division will continue its programs and initiatives which provide social safety nets aimed at reducing inequalities, alleviating poverty, and promoting the overall well-being of the most vulnerable members of our society. We shall continue to innovate to assist the most vulnerable in various communities. Our programs for our seniors and our vulnerable will continue in earnest. Madam President, I wish for this House and the public to be assured that this Concerned Citizens Movement administration will continue to pursue policies that would enhance our economic climate, promote investment, and stimulate economic activity with the ultimate goal of inspiring human progress and enhancing economic resilience. We put people at the epicenter of all we do, and every policy prescription must demonstrate that in Nevis, our people matter most. If I can now look at the international and regional economic developments. The economic statistics for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, as produced by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, indicate that gross domestic product for the fiscal year 2022 grew by an appreciably 7.6%. The ECCB also forecasts that the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis is expected to grow by 3.8% in 2023 and 4.8% in 2024. In comparison, the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union region, which saw growth of 8.9% in GDP in 2022, is expected to grow by 6.4% in 2023 and 5.1% in 2024. Put simply, St. Kitts and Nevis is slightly off the pace in relation to the overall estimate in growth for the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. In a similar manner, the International Monetary Fund, in its October 2023 World Economic Outlook report, indicated that the baseline focus is for global economic growth to slow from 3.5% in 2022 to 3% in 2023 and a further decline to 2.9% in 2024. These expectations are well below the historical average growth percentage of 3.8% witnessed over the period 2019 to 2020. The report further outlines that growth in advanced economies is expected to decrease from 2.6% in 2022 to 1.5% in 2023 and to 1.4% in 2024. The World Economic Outlook also advises that emerging markets and developing economies are projected to experience a marginal decline in growth moving from 4.1% in 2022 to 4% in both 2023 and 2024. On a positive note, the report does highlight the fact that global inflation rates are expected to decline steadily over the medium term. However, due to the magnitude of factors affecting prices globally, this decline in prices may take some time to be recognized by consumers. There continues to exist many downside risks to growth, such as the continued fallout from the war in Ukraine, commodity export bans, rising global interest rates, high cost of living, especially regarding energy, food prices and housing, climate change, and issues around geoeconomic fragmentation. If I can look now, Madam President, at a summary of selected achievements. We are indeed pleased with the work done thus far by this administration. Regarding infrastructural improvements, private sector growth initiatives, legislative updates to improve the business environment, and improved social safety net programs. We anticipate that these changes will advance our ability to take advantage of opportunities that would spur further positive changes in the economic landscape. There's no doubt that the work done thus far will aid in the development of a framework that will support long-term resilience and sustainable inclusive economic growth. Worthy of note is that for this past financial year, this administration has accomplished the following. We successfully implemented our retirement benefits scheme for all non-established workers. Very proud of that, Madam President, because over the years there had been a lot of talk. We have delivered. We paid public servants a second tranche of a 5% salary increase. We did that this year, having paid an initial 5% retroactive last year. We reestablished the operation of the call center premises in Brownhill. We facilitated the operations of an additional call center in Charlestown. We completed the reconstruction of the island's main road from Cliff Dwellers to Newcastle. We completed the resurfacing of the bypass road from the Artisan Village to Pump Road. We completed the main road works in Bart Village. We reinstated the hosting of the Financial Services Anti-Money Laundering Conference. We successfully hosted the first ever CTO Human Resources Conference in Nevis. That is the first ever time in Nevis that we are hosting that conference. We completed work on upgrading the facilities at the water taxi pier, and I'm advised that we should have an opening ceremony, I hope, soon. We commenced work for the construction of the broiler processing facility at Prospect. We relocated the Charlestown Health Center to new and improved premises, allowing us to focus our attention now on rebuilding the historic health center right here in the heart of Charlestown. We continued, Madam President, our housing revolution with home construction in Maddens, Craddock Road, Prospect, and Rices. We have completed the laying of over 12,000 feet of water mains island-wide to ensure consistent delivery of water. We have purchased and installed state-of-the-art mammography equipment and computer hardware and software at Alexandra Hospital, and have offered free mammograms to Nevisians for 2023. I emphasize for 2023 because the freeness stops on December 31st of 2023. So I encourage all of our women, as always, particularly those over 40, please go to the hospital and have your mammograms done. If I can turn now to the domestic economic performance. Madam President, our budget for this fiscal year 2023 was set at $261.65 million. It laid out a new condensed structure for the administration with expenditure plans for the near to medium term. Recurrent revenue was forecasted to grow by a modest 7% over what was collected in 2022, driven mainly by improvements in VAT collections, which had already showed signs of rebound post-pandemic. When we examined our actual achievement for the period 2022-2023, our recurrent revenue generated as of October 31st, 2023, amounted to $118.88 million. That represents an increase of $9.69 million or 8.9%, over the $109.19 million generated over the same period in 2022. This is also an improvement of $1.54 million over the forecast revenue of $117.34 million, which was expected to be generated by October 2023. This revenue, coupled with the amount of $61.96 million, which includes funds received through development aid, along with a share of revenue from the CBI program, resulted in a total revenue of $180.84 million. This represents an overall increase in revenue of $14.4 million, or 8.7%, when compared to total revenue of $166.44 million collected for the period up to October 2022. The tax revenue collected as of October 31st, 2023, amounted to $92.51 million, which represents an increase of $6.58 million, or 7.7%, when compared to the amount of $85.93 million collected for the same period in 2022. This outturn for the fiscal year 2023, thus far, indicates that the local economy is continuing to build on the gains achieved in 2022. Overall, tax revenue accounted for 7.88% of recurrent revenue, with the remaining 22.2% classified as non-tax revenue. VAT receipts are an important source of revenue and make up a significant portion of the administration's tax revenue. VAT receipts of $32.36 million collected up to October 2023 accounted for 35% of tax revenue and 27.2% of total recurrent revenue. Other notable contributors to recurrent revenue, include corporate income tax, 8.5%, stamp duties, 8.3%, revenue from international financial services, 9.4%, import duties, 7.8%, and social services levy, 8.5%. Madam President, the total expenditure for the period ended October 31st, 2023, amounted to $197.47 million, which marks an increase of $24.29 million, or 14%, when compared to the outlay of $173.18 million for the period ending October 31st, 2022. Recurrent expenditure for the year amounted to $153.24 million, which is an increase of $14.93 million, or 10.8%, when compared to the outlay of $138.31 million for the same period in 2022. The main components of recurrent expenditure for the period under review were personal emoluments, which accounted for 47.9%, including the second tranche of the 5% salary increase paid to public servants, and goods and services, which accounted for 22.9%. Debt service payments consisting of both principal and interest repayments amounted to $27.61 million, or 18% of recurrent expenditure. The capital expenditure for the period under review amounted to some $44.22 million. That represents an increase of $9.35 million, or 26.8%, when compared to the outlay of $34.87 million for the same period in 2022. This expenditure relates to our investment in both the physical and social infrastructure on the island, aimed at achieving further economic expansion over the medium term. Therefore, Madam President, our primary balance has contracted by $4.79 million, moving from a surplus of $15.78 million at the end of October 2022 to a surplus of $10.98 million as of October 31st, 2023. Our overall balance moved from a surplus of $1.13 million at the end of October 2022 to a deficit of $3.9 million as of October 31st, 2023. The fiscal deficit remains relatively unchanged, moving from $21.25 million in 2022 to $21.64 million at the end of October 2023. Our fiscal position as of October 31st, 2023 remains hopeful, and we are on track to exceed our revenue targets while remaining within our outlined expenditure parameters. Madam President, I pause for a moment just to say that any time we hear the word deficit, it means that there's work to be done. And I'm hopeful that as I continue with this budget presentation, the House and the public will see some of the efforts in terms of that work that we are willing to do to bring our expenditure to heel. Performance of the value-added tax, Madam President. VAT acts as a valuable indicator of the economic health of the island. As outlined below, VAT receipts continue to trend upwards, and we expect this robust growth trend to continue into the medium term. The return to pre-crisis level in the tourism sector and the continued expansion of economic activity across all sectors have put total VAT receipts on a path to outpace budgeted expectations for this fiscal period. The total VAT revenue collected as of October 31st, 2023 stood at $32.36 million, which is an increase of $1.62 million or 5.3% when compared to the $30.74 million collected for the period October 31st, 2022. On this trend, it is expected that the total VAT receipts for 2023 would exceed the $36.9 million collected for the year 2022 by a noticeable margin. Currently, VAT receipts account for 27.2% of our total recurrent revenue, which is higher than the general average contribution of 25%. The total VAT collected thus far consists of $18.96 million, or 58.6% from the consumption of domestic goods, and $13.4 million, or 41.4% from international trade and transactions. Of note, the VAT collected at the Inland Revenue Department of $18.96 million has increased by $2.06 million, or 12.2%, when compared to the $16.9 million generated for the corresponding period in 2022. While VAT collected at the Customs Department of $13.4 million decreased slightly by $0.44 million, or 3.2%, in comparison to the $13.84 million collected for the same period in 2022. I should say that our head of customs has promised me to make up the stagger by the end of the year. Madam President, these results indicate that even though the local economy still faces many challenges, the fiscal stance adopted by this administration to help navigate our economy through some of the worst economic times and chart a path for an economic rebound and transformation are holding steady. Let us now look at our public debt and debt restructuring. As of 31st October 2023, the central government debt stock portfolio stood at $480.08 million, which is an increase of 4.8% when compared to the debt level of $458.27 million as at December 31st, 2022. For the period under review, the central government domestic debt amounted to $450.74 million, which represented 93.9% of the total central government debt, while the foreign debt amounted to $29.34 million, which amounted to 6.1% of the total central government debt. And by central government, I mean the Nevis Island Administration debt. You will see from these numbers that our debt portfolio is heavily local, 93.9%, with only 6.1% being external debt. During the fiscal period, the administration contracted a loan in the amount of $3.2 million from the Bank of Nevis Limited to finance the resurfacing of the bypass road stretching from Pump Road to the Artisan Village at Pinnis. Additionally, we continue to draw down on the previously approved loan facility from the Bank of Nevis to finance the Island Main Road project stretching from Cades Bay to Newcastle. Our central government debt, combined with the debts of our statutory corporations, provide an overall public sector debt of $544.69 million as at October 31st, 2023, which indicates an increase of 4% when compared to the public sector debt level of $523.92 million as of December 31st, 2022. Madam President, this government seeks to be fiscally responsible, and therefore, any increase in debt at any level is unwelcomed. However, given the twin problems of upward pressure on expenditure, particularly in the areas of healthcare, education, and infrastructure expenditure, and the downward pressure on revenue caused by much slower than expected economic recovery, I believe that we can be proud to have kept the increase in total debt to less than 5% over this period. Notwithstanding our ability to service our debt effectively, it is critical and urgent that the Nevis Island administration embarks on a path to reduce the overall public sector debt. Debt reduction, both at the central government and critically at the statutory corporation levels, will therefore be a critical objective during this fiscal year. To achieve this, we will need to maximize our revenue collection and tightly control our expenditure. Put shortly, Madam President, Nevis must live within its means, while ensuring that the necessary safety nets for the most vulnerable are maintained. New programs and initiatives. Madam President, one may well ask, what can be expected of this government for the upcoming year? In addition to our infrastructure program, as will be laid out in our capital budget, my government will seek to implement the following new initiatives. In conjunction with the federal government, we will implement a new multi-tax solution system at the Inland Revenue Department. This revenue management system will streamline and automate all tax administration processes from tax levying to tax collection while enhancing intelligent data reporting. It will transform the IRD from a paper-based organization into an electronic platform offering online portal services for business registration, filing, and the payment of taxes. The much-anticipated go-live date is the first quarter of 2024, and a series of taxpayer education programs to build awareness will commence early in the new fiscal year. We have promised, Madam President, this new system will assist us in being more efficient in our tax collection. We will honor our commitment to pay the final tranche of the 5% salary increase to our public servants. This was a commitment made and a commitment that will be kept. For the avoidance of doubt, come January 1st, 2024, all public servants in Nevis will get a further 5% increase in salary, which means that over the course of the last 2 years, Madam President, we would have delivered on our commitment to give a 15% salary increase, the largest in the history of the island of Nevis. I should add, for completeness, that no member of the cabinet has received any salary increase. And so this 15% has not extended to the members of the cabinet. I hope those behind me are not upset with me, but that is the current position, Madam President, that we took a decision as a cabinet that the increases would go to public servants, the civil servants, and other NE workers, and not to the members of cabinet. We will expand our programs for greater skill training and adult education. We will embark on the drilling of at least 3 wells to boost our water supply, while commissioning a small desalination plant also to boost our water supply. We will commence in full our broiler operation at the Department of Agriculture. We will assume ownership of 30 bus shelters located island-wide, which will be used as a valuable marketing tool for our small business operators. We will launch a digital marketplace for our small business operators. We will finalize some critical acquisition of lands for important public purposes. We'll provide some incentives for local businesses and homeowners to spruce up, as we say colloquially, their premises in time for Culture Armor 50. And details of that, I'm advised by the Ministry of Finance, will be provided in due course. Madam President, this is just a synopsis of the new initiatives to be implemented by this government in the upcoming budgetary period. Let us have a look now at job creation and employment. Madam President, job creation has always been a hallmark of this administration's developmental strategy. The average number of jobs and the number of persons employed on Nevis continues to trend upwards post-2020. The employment trends observed over the past 3 years, and especially for the period January to October 2023, indicate that there continues to be steady growth in jobs across all sectors of the economy. The average number of jobs as of December 31st, 2022 stood at 6,057, while the average number of persons employed as of December 31st, 2022 stood at 5,583, indicating that there was a surplus of jobs on the island. This surplus has been satisfied by some 457 persons reported to hold multiple jobs, or put simply, employed by more than one employer. And these statistics are from Social Security, so they're not our numbers, but Social Security numbers. During the period December 2020 to July 2023, there has been a 28% increase in the average number of jobs on the island. A significant portion of this growth is in the tourism sector, which at the end of 2020 moved from 661 jobs to 1,234 jobs at the close of fiscal year 2022, and remained steady around that level up to the third quarter of 2023. The average number of persons employed as registered with the St. Christopher Nevis Social Security Board at the end of December 2022 stood at 5,583, which indicates an increase of 25.6% when compared to the 4,445 persons in 2020, and a 6.5% when compared to the 5,244 persons employed in 2021. The reported number as of July 31st, 2023 was 5,534, which is already ahead of the 2020 and 2021 outcomes, and is expected to further increase during the latter half of 2023 as we head into the more robust part of our tourist season. Similarly, Madam President, data as provided by the St. Kitts and Nevis Social Security Board indicate that at July 2023, the average number of jobs in Nevis stood at 5,965. This outcome has not only surpassed the 4,646 jobs reported for the entire year of 2020 and the 5,638 jobs reported for the year of 2021, but is on par with the 6,057 jobs reported for 2022, even as we are yet to see the commencement of the 2023 tourist season. The data also indicates that as of July 2023, there was a surplus in the average number of jobs by some 431, which again may have been satisfied by the 421 persons that were reported to hold multiple jobs for this period. So that I'm clear, Madam President, the Social Security data is saying that there are more jobs in Nevis than workers. And so that gap is being filled by some people having multiple jobs. So I just want to make that clear so that the public understands the numbers. Of note is that post-2020, the number of persons holding multiple jobs has grown by 114.8%. In 2020, 196 persons held multiple jobs. 2021, 382 persons. 2022, 457 persons. And thus far as of July 2023, some 421 persons hold multiple jobs. There continues to be significant growth in average gross wages earned by employees on the island. The average gross wages earned moved from $13.25 million at the end of 2020 to $21.66 million as of July 31st, 2023. This indicates a growth of 63% post-2020. At the end of the fiscal year 2022, average gross wages stood at $18.9 million, which shows that for the first 7 months of 2023, wages earned have already surpassed that of 2022 by some 14.6%. Put differently, not only do we have more jobs, not only do we have more workers, we also have those workers making more salary, more wages. Along with the growth in the wage rate, there has been a steady increase in the number of employers on the island. At the end of 2020, the number of employers stood at 397, as recorded with the St. Kitts and Nevis Social Security Board. This has risen to 538, from 397 to 538 as of July 31st, 2023, which represents 35.5% increase over the last 3.5-year period. As the economic conditions on the island continue to improve, it is anticipated that businesses will expand and that new startups will be entering the market. The employment data across all sectors is encouraging, and it is expected that these numbers will continue to trend upwards in the medium term. Madam President, the above is borne out through the Social Services Levy, collected at the Inland Revenue Department and levied on direct wages. The amount collected up to October 31st, 2023 stood at $10.2 million. This is an increase of $1.3 million or 14.6% when compared to the amount of $8.9 million collected for the same period in fiscal year 2022, and an increase of 18.5% or $1.59 million when compared to the $8.61 million collected in 2021. If I can synopsize what I have taken. Okay. Christmas. Oh, the noise. It's not coming from me. So, Madam President, to synopsize, it appears from the data from Social Security that Nevis has grown in terms of jobs, has grown in terms of those employed, has grown in terms of the wages being earned by those employed, has grown in terms of the number of employers, and as a result, our taxes levied on wages, being the social services levy, has grown as well. So all the indicators are aligned. And I believe, Madam President, as I always say, that the numbers are actually higher, because we know that not everyone is registered with Social Security, and therefore we anticipate that there is still some element of the population and still some element of the economy which is unaccounted for. I can think, for example, of many of our self-employed individuals who are not registered with Social Security. And whenever I get the occasion, as I do now, I encourage them, please, to go in and register with Social Security. Some see Social Security as a tax. It is not a tax. It is an investment in yourself, so that when sickness comes, when pregnancy comes, when old age comes, when retirement comes, you have a little something that you can get back. So I invite our people again to go in and register, because I'm certain that these numbers would actually look even better if more people were registered with Social Security. Let me now look at some public-private sector partnerships for development. Madam President, as mentioned in my last budget address earlier this year, the stark reality for us is that our local resources are limited, exceedingly limited. We must continue to usher in an era of public-private partnerships for development if we are to grow and advance our economy in a way that brings tangible benefits to our people. To that end, this administration was delighted to establish a partnership with Radius Holdings LLC, a US-based company, to commence operations at the call center in Brown Hill. We all remember that that center had closed abruptly and had remained closed for some time. That company currently operates call centers in Jamaica and elsewhere. To date, a total of 70 persons have already gained meaningful employment at the call center, and based on our discussion with the operator, it is anticipated that employment will increase gradually, with the final objective of having at least 180 persons fully engaged at this facility over the next 12 months. This data processing center serves clients worldwide with front office services, debt collection, and other exercises. In a similar manner, we have collaborated with telemed partners out of the US to facilitate the opening of the first ever medical type call center operation on Nevis. This center, which is located in Charlestown, presently employs a staff of 9 persons and provides front office services for medical doctors in the United States. It is projected to increase employment to at least 40 employees over the next 12 months. In the area of manufacturing, we are partnering with the Nevis Peak Brewery Company Limited to develop a brewery in Nevis. We have talked about this for some time. It appears that it is now coming to fruition. The first phase of this operation will see the opening of a restaurant and brew pub at Pinneys, with the future intention to develop a full-scale brewery on Nevis. It is envisaged that this entity will employ at least 20 persons when it becomes fully operational. We continue to strengthen our partnership with the Nevis International Service Providers Association, and to this end, a contingent from both NISPA and the Nevis Investment Promotion Agency participated in the STEP Caribbean Conference in Panama in June 2023. This conference was very insightful, and both entities were able to benefit from quality education, useful resources, valuable connections, professional recognition, and international connections. Following this exercise, we witnessed the redomiciliation of several financial services entities from that region to Nevis. The Nevis Investment Promotion Agency, NIPA, collaborated with Sotheby's, a real estate and investment company operating here in Nevis, to create a series of webinars entitled The Allure of Nevis, targeting investments in real estate, yachting, tourism, finance, and banking. These informative webinars provided fast-track information from expert panelists within the listed fields, with the aim of advancing Nevis as a destination that is open for investment and open for business. To further propel our Nevis Open for Investment strategy, our investment promotion agency continues to promote and create marketing videos in our 7 priority fields of investment. These are financial services, tourism services, light manufacturing, real estate, ITC and communication, agriculture, and entertainment. These videos, which are disseminated to our digital audiences via social media sites, are designed to sensitize the public, local and foreign investors of the investment opportunities available in Nevis. We welcome the recent news that there has been a court order for the finalization of the sale of Niswood Plantation Inn. That property once provided significant employment to the good people of St. James and was a source of economic activity for our local fishers, farmers, and other allied agencies in the tourism sector. Considering this, we had granted significant concessions to the buyers as an incentive for them to rehabilitate the property and return it to operation in the shortest possible time, thus returning employment for our people and providing much-needed hotel rooms. We are therefore anxiously looking forward to the reconstruction and reopening of that property. On the matter of the development of the Vance Amory International Airport, plans remain on track. As indicated in my last budget address, we recognize that our tourism product can be more sustainable if we continue to target high-value visitors who are interested in longer stays. To tap into that market, we need to position our airport as convenient, dependable, safe, and efficient, with superior private jet accommodation, providing adequate hangar space, parking, fueling facilities, maintenance, and a first-class FBO. This joint venture project will involve the extension of the airport runway by approximately 1,500 feet and the upgrading of our existing facilities to accommodate private jets and regional jets currently being used by American Airlines and other U.S. carriers. Indeed, Madam President, I'm pleased to report that we had our first in a series of public consultations just last evening, and we anticipate going into the various communities all across Nevis to get feedback from the public on the plans and programs for the extension and expansion of the Vance Amory International Airport. Some may wonder about the regional jet, but we are aware, Madam President, that Anguilla and Dominica, close by, are currently utilizing American Airlines out of Miami. In fact, I was in Miami recently, and there were 2 flights that day from Miami International to Anguilla used in the regional jet. And that is what we anticipate that we too will be able to benefit from here on the island of Nevis, in addition, of course, to providing the services for the private jets, which we know come here, particularly during the Christmas season. I am pleased to report that we have signed a contract with the engineering and design firm Perez Engineering to provide professional services for the airport expansion, reconstruction, and design, along with construction supervision for the proposed works to be undertaken at the airport. We have made adequate provisions in this budget for the funding of Phase 1 of this work, which will involve the consultation and design phase of the project. I'm also pleased that the public consultation, as I said earlier, Madam President, have started. And this, of course, is consistent with our commitment to be an open and transparent government. That, Madam President, brings me to the important tourism sector. I wish now to turn attention to the all-important area of tourism, which remains a critical pillar of the Nevisian economy. As we continue our gradual recovery, our tourism sector experienced modest growth in 2023, marked by stronger levels of bookings at hotels, restaurants, tour companies, and other tourism enterprises. In the area of cruise tourism, we continue to receive interest from cruise lines such as Windsurf, Sea Dream 1 and 2, Starflyer, Sea Cloud 2, and others. We are well aware of the transformative power tourism possesses, both as an economic driver and as a catalyst for sustainable development. Our focus remains clear: to strategically invest in our tourism industry, fostering not only growth, but a high level of resilience and sustainability, which is integral to the prosperity of the island of Nevis. Our budget theme underscores our commitment to laying a sturdy foundation for the future, one that ensures the enduring success of our economy while preserving the beauty and culture of our island. Our multifaceted thrust towards sustainable development in tourism is predicated on the 4 Ps: people, planet, profit, and partnership. The people aspect emphasizes the central role of local communities, tourists, and the workforce in the tourism industry. It underscores the importance of ensuring that tourism benefits local residents and enhances their quality of life. Sustainable tourism involves respecting and preserving the cultural heritage, traditions, and ways of life of the people of Nevis. The planet dimension highlights the critical need to protect and preserve our environment and the natural resources of Nevis. It recognizes that tourism, if not managed sustainably, can have adverse effects on the environment, including overdevelopment, pollution, and habitat destruction. Sustainable tourism therefore aims to minimize its ecological footprint by implementing measures like conserving energy and water, reducing waste, and supporting eco-friendly transportation options. The profit element underscores the economic viability of the tourism industry. It involves making investments in tourism infrastructure, marketing, and services that not only benefit tourists, but also provide opportunities for local entrepreneurs and businesses. It recognizes the economic value of natural and cultural assets and seeks to leverage them responsibly for long-term financial gain. Partnerships, the last of the 4 Ps, emphasizes the collaborative approach required for sustainable tourism development. It acknowledges that no single entity or stakeholder can achieve sustainability goals in isolation. Effective partnerships involve cooperation between governments, local communities, the private sector, and the non-governmental organizations. It also extends to international collaboration, where nations and organizations work together to support sustainable tourism practices. The 4 Ps framework, therefore, reflects a holistic and balanced approach to sustainable tourism development. This approach is critical to ensure that tourism not only drives economic growth, but also contributes to the long-term well-being and resilience of Nevis. Considering this framework, we have made some strides in 2023 and will continue this focus in 2024. We successfully hosted the Caribbean Tourism Organization's 10th Biennial Human Resource Conference, which was held at the Four Seasons Resort Nevis from 30th October to 1st November 2023. It provided valuable exposure for the destination and ensured that our local tourism practitioners benefited from the wealth of information that was shared during this event. Over 160 persons attended, including delegates from several Caribbean countries, from Trinidad in the south to the Cayman Islands in the north, and was facilitated by speakers from the USA and Canada. I wish to use this medium, Madam President, to thank all of our sponsors and partners for their sterling contribution in ensuring that our visitors had a truly memorable Nevisian experience. The Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park. This park continues to attract thousands of visitors. in its second year of operation, warranting further investment in areas such as additional seating, playground amenities for our children, exercise amenities, and additional landscaping. The Pinnis Beach Enhancement Project is about 50% complete. We are confident that it will enhance the entire Pinnis Beach area. The work being done will make the area more attractive for business and recreation through improved drainage, upgraded road networks, a centralized sewage system, improved lighting, proper parking, improved security, and landscaping. The project is expected to be completed by mid-2024. Madam President, so that the House and the public are clear, this is the second phase of the park project that is now being undertaken and which we are saying is roughly 50% complete at this stage. We hope that when that is done, that Pinnis Beach will become the mecca for all things entertainment, all things relaxation, for family, for everyone who come to Nevis, they will find their way to Pinnis Beach. That is the hope. That is why we're trying to build out the infrastructure. And I take this opportunity to thank the government and people of the Republic of China, Taiwan, who have contributed in a significant way to making this project possible. Madam President, I am pleased to advise that the famous Bath Stream, which is one of our most visited sites, is currently in the process of getting a much-needed physical upgrade. Bathroom facilities, yes, at long last, bathroom facilities, changing rooms, seating facilities, parking spaces, and improved road access, along with fencing and landscaping, will be installed and completed during the upcoming year. The gazebo pool will also be resurfaced. We are asking for the patience of the public while we undergo these upgrades, which are needed to improve the functionality and aesthetics of this important site. The Bath Hotel Upgrade Project will also continue in 2024 through the auspices of the Nevis Historical and Conservation Society and its kind partners and sponsors. In 2023, Madam President, we invested quite heavily in airlift into Nevis. This is a critical component of the success of our tourism industry. The KPS service between St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands and the Vansham International Airport has been doing well, and there are considerations for negotiating an additional route with that airline. We have also been seeing increased airlift via our sister island, St. Kitts, with greatly improved connectivity for our visitors to Nevis via Inter-Caribbean Airways, Caribbean Airlines, and most recently, JetBlue from New York. Madam President, this again underscores the need for us to rehabilitate the Vansham International Airport to attract more traffic, more passengers, to grow our tourism industry. Let me at this point, for those who might be listening in the diaspora, say to our brothers and sisters in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, who have been agitating that they need airlift to come home, especially for Culturama 50, that we will certainly be working to see whether we can find a solution to the current difficulties that they face. Madam President, they're telling me that they have to fly from St. Croix to St. Thomas and then from St. Thomas to Nevis, which carries up their costs significantly. Of course, Coastal Air, which served Nevis from St. Croix for many years, has gone out of business, it appears. It is no longer operating. And so our Nevisians in St. Croix find themselves in some difficulty. I know that many listen, and I'm assuring them that we're working to find a solution to bring them home in a convenient and cost-effective way. The Nevis Tourism Authority, NTA, has had several successes in 2023. It has been able to increase the digital footprint of the destination in our main market areas. The NTA has aggressively created a greater awareness of the destination through its digital marketing efforts. Viewership to the destination website has increased by 110%, and there has also been increased engagement on social media platforms by some 300%. We've had a total of 15 million impressions. Year to date, the social media efforts of the NTA have resulted in over 350 public relations, print, online, and social media mentions, as well as increased coverage with a possible global reach of 5 million. We have asked the NTA to increase the digital efforts as a more cost-effective way to advertise Nevis. And if there's any indication of our rebound in tourism, the NTA had been forced to go into debt during the COVID years. The NTA, I'm pleased now to say, is in the black and no longer in the red, and doing quite well as a result of that 2% that is paid on hotel stays, restaurants, and allied services. Both the USA and UK sales reps continue their work among trade partners in their respective areas. We have increased our destination education programs with tour operators and travel agents, particularly those located in Northeast US and London, UK, which are the main feeder market areas for Nevis. The NTA held very successful joint road shows with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority in London and in the northeastern United States. Particularly with the increased airlift from JetBlue into the Federation, Nevis partnered with the St. Kitts Tourism Authority to educate travel agents in Boston, Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey, all feeder cities for JetBlue. This initiative has resulted in immediate bookings for stays at our hotels. I'd want to commend Mr. Devon Liebert, our CEO, the board and entire team, and Mr. Fayon. Fayon is here, I believe I saw him earlier. He's right here. Our new marketing person, head of marketing at the NTA, who has been doing an excellent job thus far. And I wish them continued success. When they succeed, Nevis succeeds. In terms of cruise, we also expect a small increase in the number of cruise calls, moving from 47 calls to 52 in the upcoming year. The expected capacity is projected to decrease, however, by 2% when compared to previous years, as a few of the large-sized vessels have reduced their number of calls. However, Madam President, we are expecting the return of Club Med 2 with 6 calls carrying 394 passengers, and Spirit of Discovery with 1 call carrying 999 passengers. In addition to the above, we are expecting inaugural calls from Emerald Azura with 1 call carrying 100 passengers, and Ritz-Carlton Evrima with 2 calls carrying 298 passengers. Madam President, let me just say that quite a few of these calls are on Sundays. And I want to encourage our people to try their very best to open their stores, their shops, and to make themselves available to make $1 on a Sunday. I know that we are a Christian community. I know that a lot of our people say Sundays are their rest. But I also know that the tourism period is short. And I believe in my heart of hearts that the good Lord will understand if they say they need to make a little something during the time of plenty, so that in the time of famine, they will have something to sustain themselves. And encourage all of those who make a little something on Sunday to put a little extra in the plate in church when they do go. Churches are open all during the week. So, if they can't go on Sunday, they can go another day or another evening. They can even join you, Madam President, in going on a Saturday, if necessary. So, I'm encouraging our people, please not to allow these opportunities to pass by. Year after year, we see people not taking advantage of the opportunities, and then they complain and say they can't make any money. So, we don't control the cruise schedules. Over 50%, I'm told, of the calls this time are on a Sunday, and I encourage our people, please take advantage of the opportunity. Open up Charlestown, open up the shops, open up the artisan village, let the taxi operators function, and let us make $1 during this season. Let me look at the construction and manufacturing sectors. Madam President, the construction sector continues to be an excellent economic support pillar and a notable complement to the rebound in economic activity in the tourism sector. We continue to incentivize the sector through programs such as our first-time homeowners program and our other programs for commercial development and villa condo development. Under these programs, prospective homeowners are granted exemption from customs duties and are required only to pay the value-added tax on building materials. The data provided by our Department of Physical Planning show that for the period January to October 2023, a total of 239 building applications were received by the department, ranging from new home construction, renovation of existing properties, construction of apartment buildings, construction of commercial properties, and erecting of perimeter fencing. Of this number, a total of 188 permits have been approved, and construction work has started on at least 124 of these. As of October 31st, 2023, there were a total of 177 active construction sites throughout the island under periodic monitoring by the officers of the Department of Physical Planning. In addition, 62 applications were received for subdivisions of lots, of which a total of 52 have been approved under the period under review. The establishment of a viable manufacturing sector with the capacity to provide materials and other supplies in support of our construction sector is a priority for this government. The growth and development of this sector is of paramount importance if we are to fully maximize the gains in the construction industry and reduce our reliance on the importation of items for construction. Madam President, we are delighted to advise of the opening of Sequip Windows and Doors, a manufacturing company located on Nevis, specializing in the manufacture of customized windows and doors. This is a welcome addition to our stock of manufacturing entities. I remind us, Madam President, that in Nevis, at present, we have the manufacturing of kitchen cupboards, fencing wire, concrete banisters, moldings, wooden doors, metal fabrication, roofing materials, and guttering, all to support our construction industry. In addition, we have the manufacturing of rum, natural beauty products, and face masks, all happening in Nevis. And on rum, I know we are manufacturing legally and some illegally. We continue to incentivize the growth of this sector through our generous concessionary policy of customs duties, exemption on importation of raw materials, and equipment to be used directly in the manufacturing process. Put differently, if you're opening a manufacturing business, the government is there to partner with you. We provide customs duties, waivers, and exemptions on the importation of your raw materials and equipment to be used directly in the manufacturing process. We encourage all of our manufacturers to become VAT registered, thus allowing the entity to recoup the VAT paid at customs on the importation of raw materials. Let me shift quickly to the all-important agricultural sector. As it relates to our agricultural sector, Madam President, this is a vital sector which has been given pride of place by this government. We know that larger countries are unable to satisfy their own internal demands, resulting in restrictions in the quantity of food being exported. This, coupled with the current war in Ukraine, the wheat-producing capital of the world, has brought the ultimate effect of an escalation in the price of food items in the international market and therefore in our local supermarkets. This has been compounded, Madam President, by the increased cost of shipping, which has increased tremendously, and that too has added to the cost that our people have to pay at our local supermarkets. Our small size in this regard can be seen as an advantage, and the sustainable development of the sector will provide us with the opportunity to feed ourselves and reduce our reliance on an uncertain international global food market. The sector is a source of sustenance and a symbol of resilience that has shaped the island's history and definitely can continue to define our future. As a government, in conjunction with our farmers, we are compelled to do more to achieve resiliency and sustainability in agriculture, whether it be livestock husbandry, crop or fruit production, agro-processing or fishing. There are significant agricultural opportunities that are arising from the current difficulties that suppliers in the global market are experiencing in regard to the exportation of food. Our farmers have demonstrated their ability to produce a wide variety of food products. However, the critical concern, Madam President, is the consistency of supply. Our people demand food daily, and therefore, the concept of seasonality of production, especially as it relates to vegetables, must be negated. There is therefore a need for consistent local production, which can encourage import substitution, which in turn will support the expansion of the sector and ultimately lead to the creation of more employment in the sector, along with increased income levels for our local farmers. This approach is the underpinning concept of the aspiration of CARICOM's 25 by 25, which is a policy framework aimed at reducing food imports by 25% by the year 2025. We are fully aware that the agricultural sector on the island of Nevis faces its share of challenges. The limited availability of land space for cultivation and animal grazing, the vulnerability to natural disasters, and the pressures of climate change present hurdles that our island's farmers have worked diligently to overcome. To confront these hurdles, Madam President, it will require the adoption of modern agricultural techniques, the integration of technology, and government support to build resilience in this sector. Therefore, our government continues to promote green or shade house facilities as a preferred means of farming, especially for short-term crops, such as tomatoes, lettuce, and sweet peppers. To date, I'm proud to say that there are 24 greenhouses presently under active cultivation and contributing at least 50% of the short-term crops available for consumption. In a similar manner, we are encouraging and incentivizing animal farmers to engage in intensive and semi-intensive farming to combat the challenge of limited land space as we seek to meet the increasing demand for meat and meat products. As a testament to our efforts at increasing food crop production, a total of 95,485 pounds of food crops were processed at the Lawrenson Parry Agricultural Depot at Prospect during the period January to November 2023. These include watermelon, butternut squash, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, and sweet peppers. Almost 100,000 pounds of food processed through that facility, Madam President. During the upcoming fiscal year, the Department of Agriculture intends to put some 700 acres of land under active crop cultivation and livestock production at New River, Prospect, Cades Bay, Potworks, and Indian Castle. Our focus will be primarily on food crops and vegetables such as tomatoes, watermelons, cucumbers, pumpkins, butternut squash, and sweet peppers. We also expect the fruit orchard at Indian Castle to start producing in earnest, especially coconuts, which are now widely sought after. And let me just encourage our people, please, if you go down to the Indian Castle fruit orchard looking for coconuts, pay for them. Pay for them. We don't want anything jumping over the fence. Please, if you go, pay for them. We have created something which will reduce the cost, because currently people are forced to import coconuts, as we know, from St. Vincent and other islands. 5,000 plus coconut palms are there producing, and we expect to start to earn a little something in the coming year from our coconuts there. Madam President, let me just say quickly that we've had from time to time the complaint that the government is growing food and that we're competing with the local farmers. I just want to say that that is not the case. And I say that is not the case because the statistics show that we cannot keep up with the demand. And our farmers and farming generally in Nevis continues to suffer from this notion of seasonality. So sometimes there's a glut of watermelon, and then you can't find a single watermelon on the island. So we need more effective management and government working with our farmers to ensure that we can feed ourselves. We are also, Madam President, increasing our thrust in meat production, particularly beef and mutton. Our meat processing capabilities at the government-run abattoir continues to receive great reviews from our hoteliers, restaurateurs, and our local citizens. Our choice cuts of meat byproducts, such as ham and sausages, are organic, more appetizing, and healthier than the imported versions. During the period January to November 2023, a total of 55,177 pounds of meat and meat byproducts were processed at our local abattoir. This number represents less than 10% of what is demanded locally. I want people to understand that we process 55,000 pounds at the abattoir, and it's less than 10% of what is demanded locally. And as such, we urge our livestock farmers to take both a scientific and, importantly, a business approach to their operations if we are to close that gap. Madam President, we drive around Nevis, we see lots of sheep and goat. all along the road, walking all in town, blocking traffic. But when you find who own them and the butcher says, I want to buy, they say, I don't have any to sell. We need our farmers to see farming as a business. And this tradition of saying that I like to see them, that's my wealth. And then when dogs get in the pen and kill 20, they start to complain. You could have sold those 20 and had some much needed income. See it as a business, because we are less than 10% able to supply our demand. We are pressing ahead with our efforts to pursue broiler production, with the acquisition of a turnkey bird processing plant, as well as the associated equipment for the provision of the various chicken parts. The construction and installation of the turnkey facility at Prospect is expected to commence very early in the new year, and we expect to complete it in 2024. We wish to thank the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, IICA, for their support in providing training and expert consultation on this project. In preparation for the launch of this signature project, the Ministry of Agriculture continues to engage in discussions with potential farmers. We are actively pursuing the purchase of lands which will be subdivided and made available to farmers via leasehold agreements for the rearing of birds. It is the Ministry's intention to operate only the processing facility, and this will be done in a similar manner as our abattoir, allowing private farmers to engage in the production of birds, with government assuming the responsibility of processing and marketing the sale of the poultry products. We have already approached suppliers of baby chicks in Barbados and the United States. We urge interested farmers to start the necessary preparation for the housing of their birds, as we wish to have birds available for processing as soon as the facility is commissioned for operations early in the new year. These birds take 6 weeks to mature, and it is the department's intention to have the assigned livestock officer work closely with farmers to develop a proper rotation system so that there can be a constant supply of birds to the facility at each rotation. Our target, Madam President, is 10,000 birds every week. That equates to 50,000 pounds of chicken for our population. It's a small step when compared to the average amount of 132,500 pounds of chicken consumed weekly by residents in Nevis. We also encourage the establishment of a hatchery to supply our own chicks. This will complement the hatchery to be developed in St. Kitts through their partnership with the Republic of China, Taiwan, and the government stands ready, willing, and able to offer the necessary incentives to make this a reality for investors. Let me look at the financial services sector and how we are seeking to redefine that sector. As it relates to this all-important financial services sector, I am pleased to report that during this fiscal year, we were delighted to host the annual AML CFT CPF conference. This conference, which has garnered international commendation, was attended by well over 180 participants. The participants comprised of management and staff of local registered agents and participants from jurisdictions such as the United States, Dominica, British Virgin Islands, and as far south as Panama and Uruguay. This conference, which was held under the theme Accountability in Action, Managing Evolving Compliance Risks and Threats, was quite an appropriate response to combating the concerns of the international regulatory agencies. The goalposts in this sector, Madam President, are ever-changing, despite our best efforts to comply with the requirements of these international agencies. We will always remain under the threat of being listed, whether so-called blacklists or gray lists, from entities such as the OECD and the CFATF. The rules and guidelines imposed on us by these agencies are changing day by day and are designed to slow our growth in developing this critical sector. We must remain resolute, even in the face of these difficulties. The threat of de-risking and the loss of correspondent banking relations for our commercial and international banks are challenges that we must confront and overcome. To combat this, we must seek to enhance our technological development and develop alternative means of settling transactions. The use of digital platforms and the development of virtual assets as a means of settling transactions must be brought into sharp focus for the sustainability and survival of this all-important sector. Madam President, the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis completed its mutual evaluation exercise late last year. I am advised that the report for St. Kitts and Nevis' mutual evaluation was again reviewed at the CFATF plenary held in Aruba at the end of last month. The initial report following the completion of the mutual evaluation exercise did provide some technical challenges for us and rated our jurisdiction as partially compliant. We are confident that following our responses to the issues raised in that report and our presentation at the recently held CFATF discussions, that our jurisdiction will retain or regain its rating of largely compliant. In a similar manner, the 16th Global Plenary Meeting was held in Lisbon, Portugal at the end of November, at which our jurisdiction, like others, was put under sharp focus as it relates to tax matters and the transfer of information for tax purposes. Madam President, this sector will always be evolving. External pressures will force us from time to time to make necessary legislative changes if we are to maintain our status as a well-regulated and reputable financial services jurisdiction. I wish to assure all the stakeholders in this industry that this government stands committed to doing whatever is necessary to maintain the reputation and good standing of this sector. In demonstration of the importance of this sector, the data generated by the Financial Services Registry indicates that as at October 31st, 2023, there were 15,546 active entities on our registers. This is an increase of 36% when compared to the total of 11,392 entries on the register in December 2022. Quite noticeable is that new incorporations for the period January to October 2023 stood at 3,003 when compared to the 1,507 entities incorporated for the same period in 2022. These new incorporations are comprised of 2,084 international business companies, or IBCs, including 5 entities providing international insurance services, 810 limited liability companies, LLCs, 101 entities providing trust services, and 8 multi-form foundations. Additionally, there were a total of 44 active trust and corporate service providers on register as of November 2023. Despite the challenges, Madam President, this sector continues to be a dominant economic pillar. It generates up to 15% of our direct revenue and plays a substantial role in private sector economic transactions in areas such as wages and salaries earned, telecommunications, property rental, and transaction remittance fees through our domestic banking sector. We have also seen significant growth and interest in our international banking sector. We expect shortly to move from 3 international banks to 6 and anticipate future growth in this area. This sector requires active monitoring and regulation, and your government is committed to investing in additional regulatory expertise and technological tools to ensure that Nevis remains a well-regulated and trusted destination in the financial services sector globally. It is our ambition, Madam President, to grow this industry by 50% year over year, and we intend to achieve that through active investment and engagement with the sector and the professionals working within it. One such initiative is to pursue a standalone statutory entity dubbed Nevis Finance to act as a one-stop shop for financial services on Nevis. This approach exists in most of the world's leading financial centers, and Nevis is committed to learning best practices from them as we continue to grow this sector. The emergence of the film sector. Madam President, the administration pursued a successful partnership with MSR Media during COVID-19 to create a film industry in Nevis from scratch, which saw the production of some 9 films over a 2-year period. MSR Media has now moved its operations elsewhere, but we thank them for their partnership in showing Nevis what is possible in this new and exciting sector. We have now hired a film commissioner attached to the Nevis Investment Promotion Agency, and we intend to continue to incentivize film, music, commercials, and photo shoot producers to bring projects to Nevis. We have excellent leads for 2024 and expect to see several film projects on Nevis during the next fiscal year. Let me switch now to our infrastructural development. Madam President, our road rehabilitation program, executed under the theme, Transforming Lives, Enhancing Communities, continued apace during the past fiscal year. It is undoubtedly true that in every community where this government has executed a major road rehabilitation program over the past 5 to 6 years, be it Hanley's Road, Butler's, Brazier's, Shaw's Road, Bath Village, or Brownhill, that community has been transformed. Madam President, this government, being true to our mantra of people matter most, has transformed the lives of all residents within these communities. In fact, I am today saying to our nationals abroad, who will descend on Nevis for Culture Armor 50 and our homecoming celebration in 2024, that many who have not been home for some time will not recognize some parts of Nevis anymore. During this fiscal year, we completed major road rehabilitation works on the first phase of the Bath Village Main Road and the Village Road in Butlers. Work was also completed on a section of the Cotton Ground Road commonly referred to as Banjo Road. In addition, work was undertaken to improve drainage on the main culvert on Samuel Hunkins Drive and at Rollins Village in Gingerland. Other road rehabilitation projects expected to be completed shortly include the milling and resurfacing of the road at Marion Avenue and Samuel Hunkins Drive. The Public Works Department has also completed the paving of a section of road in Potworks leading from the St. James Anglican Church to the Apsaris development. My administration has also engaged the services of Surrey Paving and Aggregates Limited to resurface the bypass road stretching from the Water Department to the Artisan Village at Pinnis. This project, which costs approximately $3.2 million, involved the milling and resurfacing of the road along with improvements in drainage. The works are now substantially completed, with just a few minor drainage work and road markings to be done. Earlier this year, we saw the completion of works on the island's main road from Cliff Dwellers to Nisbets, again undertaken by Surrey Paving at a cost of $11 million. This work involved realigning sections of the main road, general resurfacing and construction, and the realignment of the road drainage system. I believe we also reduced the hill, Hurricane Hill, to make the driving there safer and to remove some of the blind spots that we had as we went over that hill. These two major projects, which have transformed these communities, were undertaken at a total cost of $14.2 million, directly funded through a loan facility from our local bank. And they would have accounted for the debt increase that we would have seen this year, Madam President. Madam President, I want to just say at this point that we lost a young man, Mr. Sturge, recently on the bypass road. And while I do not know the circumstance of the accident, I want to extend my condolences to his family. But I also want to use the occasion to encourage our people to use these new roads responsibly. The roads are nice. The roads are smooth. Sometimes you're speeding and you don't even know because there's no rattling. You're having a smooth ride. And sometimes on these smooth roads, we are all tempted to accelerate. I want to say to our people that the government cannot be asked to put speed bumps on main roads. We must put our own speed bumps. We must conduct ourselves within the parameters of the law, which I think for most parts of Nevis still say that the speed limit is 20 miles an hour, and in some cases, I believe, as high as 40. I don't believe it goes beyond 40. if we conduct ourselves appropriately, bearing in mind that we are a small island, that nowhere is far, I believe that we can use our roads responsibly and eliminate any road accidents and fatalities. And so we're investing, but we need our people to also cooperate with us, Madam President. We are cognizant of the fact that there exists great economic potential in accessing the south side of the island. This was mentioned at great length in my last budget presentation. I am proud to announce that the ministry has commenced the preparation of bidding documents for the eventual construction of that road leading from Long Point all the way around the southern belt to Indian Castle. Although delayed, we shall in 2024 invite proposals for the preliminary surveys and designs leading towards the eventual start of that project. As it relates to water services, critical water services, we continue to crave the patience and understanding of our people as we seek to grapple with the negative effects of climate change on our water system. The ongoing changes in rainfall patterns are seriously affecting the rate of recharge of our aquifers. To put it simply, our water supply is harvested from underground water via the wells located in various areas around the island. As water is pumped from our wells for daily use, there is an expectation that these wells will recharge themselves through the natural process of underground water continuing to flow into them during our rainy season. The continuous reduction in the amount of rainfall annually due to global warming has naturally reduced the amount of available underground water to recharge these wells. The resulting effect is that several of our existing wells are running very low, leading to a reduction in the quantity of water flowing through our water distribution system. To remedy this situation and to ensure that there is a continuous flow of water available for our residents, this administration can either invest in the development of desalination to convert seawater into potable water, or undertake the drilling of new water wells in untapped areas, or perhaps, Madam President, a little of both. The administration has sought to explore both options. To this end, we invited proposals for drilling from 5 entities: Water and Oil Wells Services Company Limited from Trinidad, Jamaica Wells, XO4 from St. Martin, H. Mario Williams, and Zygen Foss Drilling, Inc. of New Jersey. H. Mario Williams, I think, is from St. Kitts, and Zygen Foss Drilling, Inc. of New Jersey. Additionally, with the assistance of the government of the United Arab Emirates, we shall have the commissioning of a small desalination plant in Nevis early in the new year to buffer our water supply as well. Madam President, we have engaged the services of Bear Rock Consulting, Inc. to carry out the exploration process to determine the most feasible and lucrative areas for drilling, and those studies shall inform our approach. Drilling of wells is an expensive venture, and as a government, we must seek to use the best knowledge and expertise available so that our resources are not wasted by drilling into areas which are not viable. I'm happy to report that we have identified 3 areas that we think are worthwhile for drilling. Those areas are Decent Estate, Rollins, and New River. All of those are in Gingerland. It is the intention of my government that, having received proposals and selected the driller, they can be mobilized very early in the new year. We've allocated an amount of $5 million in the budget to facilitate the work on the first phase of this water drilling program, and I should be able to say, as I do, that we've also sought some external funding from friendly governments to assist in this project, which is part of our climate adaptation strategy. Madam President, we continue to undertake work on rehabilitating our water distribution network island-wide to avoid wastage due to breakage. It involves replacing some of our existing water mains with state-of-the-art piping, thereby connecting all of our communities to our storage facilities. In doing so, this ensures that water supply can be moved easily around the island as required. To this end, 2,200 feet of 4-inch PVC pipes were installed in the Brownhill and Pinnis area, along with the upgrading of the pipe network in Rollins Pasture to 4-inch HDPE piping. Further, 3,700 feet of 2-inch HDPE water mains were installed in Cohoon Estate, Prospect Estate, adjacent to the government repair shop, and in the area commonly referred to as Montserrat Village, to alleviate the extremely low pressure being experienced during peak demand periods. Additionally, there were upgrades to the water mains included in the Charlestown Bypass Road project, where several pipe branches were installed to aid future development in that area. Replacement lines were installed in Bath Village to facilitate the Bath Road Improvement Project. Approximately 6,000 feet of 6-inch HDPE pipes were installed from Cliff Dwellers to Hurricane Hill to facilitate the Island Main Road Improvement Project. Likewise, 4-inch HDPE pipes were laid in Rollins Pasture, Maddens, Stony Grove Housing Project, Craddock Road Housing Project, and the Cherry Garden Chimney Crescent Housing Project. This forms part of our water maintenance program, for which we continue to allocate approximately $4 million annually for water services upgrades. Madam President, providing water is a costly venture, and it is the responsibility of the government to do whatever is required to provide this necessity to all of our residents. Our ability to do so hinges greatly on the revenue collection at the Nevis Water Department. We continue to be alarmed that despite an increase in the supply of water provided daily, we're not seeing the corresponding increase in the revenue collections at the department. It says that there are several customers who continue to be in arrears for water consumed, and many who are simply refusing to pay. The Cabinet has instructed the department that the water disconnection program should continue monthly for the upcoming year for all persons in arrears for 3 months or over. I wish to encourage everyone to see it as their sacred and responsible duty to pay monthly and regularly for water consumed, whether or not you receive a bill from the department. The threat of disconnection should never be the driving force for people to pay for this valuable commodity. I remind the Nevision public that we prefer to collect than to disconnect. So even where amounts cannot be paid in full, we urge you please to speak to the management of the Water Department and to implement a payment plan. And Madam President, if the Nevision public had any doubts about the importance of water and investment in water, I comment in passing and in commiseration with our brothers and sisters in St. Croix, United States Virgin Islands, where President Biden has just declared a national emergency because the water in St. Croix is said to have lead in it over 100 times the acceptable limit. People in St. Croix are being forced to bathe with bottled water. We should not take the expenditure and investment that has happened right here in Little Nevis for granted. St. Croix and the USVI has the might and power of the United States behind them, and they have a national emergency in water in St. Croix. I pray that they can overcome that. And you know, when I asked colleagues there what was the problem, they're telling me it's because they still have those old-time iron pipes in St. Croix. But look at how we have replaced all of those pipes here on the island of Nevis. These are things that we should be proud of, and achievements for such an island our size, that we have replaced all of those old infrastructure and have put in new infrastructure here for water in Nevis. Let me speak to renewable energy. Madam President, we have had much said about renewable energy and geothermal energy in particular. Having had US $17 million approved by the Caribbean Development Bank for this project on December 9th, 2022, I had hoped to be able to report today a completion of the production well drilling phase. Unfortunately, the project has again experienced delays due to a funding gap of roughly $20 million and a failure of the initial round of bidding for the production well drilling. We are now in the final stages of a second round of bidding, and I'm hopeful that we can announce a successful bidder early in 2024. Along the way, this project continues to attract considerable favorable global attention as the first genuine possibility for an entire nation to be weaned entirely off fossil fuels for the generation of electricity. Geothermal energy promises to transform not just Nevis, but our sister St. Kitts and the neighboring islands in the archipelago that we call home. Madam President, I am pleased to report that on Monday, 20th November 2023, the National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis historically voted unanimously to pursue geothermal development as a national priority for the benefit of both Nevis and St. Kitts. This historic step signals a unity of purpose between the federal government in Bastia and the administration in Charlestown to finally bring this tremendous resource to fruition for the benefit of all of our people. As the federal government pursues its sustainable island state agenda, the geothermal resources in Nevis have now been recognized as the critical foundation on which that agenda can be achieved. Madam President, clean, cheap geothermal energy means that we no longer will be buffeted by the vagaries of global oil prices. We will no longer pollute the atmosphere with the burning of fossil fuel for electricity generation. We will no longer see our financial resources being stripped away for payment of exorbitant fuel costs. We can transform our economy to an energy-based economy. We can bring lasting relief to our people from high electricity costs. We can export energy to neighboring islands. We can harness desalination efforts to solve water shortages across our nation. We can attract new industries and create new jobs. We can develop green hydrogen and ammonia for export. In short, Madam President, the possibilities with geothermal energy are endless, and this resource holds the key for the future prosperity and sustainability of our island and our country. Madam President, if we can solve our energy problems and get clean, cheap energy, it means we can then do desalination and solve our water problems once and for all. No more drilling, because we're surrounded by ocean. If we can solve our water problems, it means that we have more water for agriculture and our farmers. If we can solve this energy and transform our economy, it means we have new jobs, more jobs, and that welcome diversification of the local economy. Renewable energy, therefore, and geothermal energy in particular, means that Nevis, and by extension St. Kitts, can achieve energy security, water security, food security, and economic security. That is how critical this is, and I'm happy that Bastia has finally recognized that the road to an island, sustainable island state leads through Nevis and the development of geothermal energy on the island of Nevis. Let us shift now to education. The Ministry of Education continues to adopt the theme of investing in quality education, empowering the nation as its mantra in the delivery of education. This theme underscores the continued significant investments being made in our education sector over the years, all to build a framework to support a resilient and sustainable economy through empowering our students by providing avenues for improved learning outcomes. Madam President, I pause to congratulate our students on their outstanding performances at both the CAPE and CSEC levels. At the CAPE level, I wish to congratulate Ms. Jaquella Barrett, who passed 9 units with 4 grade 1s and a GPA of 3.61. Ms. Kayla Daly, who passed 8 units with 3 grade 1s and a GPA of 3.56. Ms. Sari Archibald, who passed 10 units with 3 grade 1s and a GPA of 3.45. The top performers at the CSEC level, we must recognize Mr. Aidan Liebert, who passed 10 subjects with 8 grade 1s, and Ms. Imogen Archibald, who passed 9 subjects with 8 grade 1s, both at the Charlestown Secondary School. At the Gingerland Secondary School, Ms. Chanel Evelyn passed 9 subjects with 6 grade 1s, and Mr. Udell Wisdom passed 9 subjects attaining 4 grade 1s. Is your Evelyn? Your family? Your family. Our family, Chanel Evelyn. Madam President, I'm heartened to report that enrollment at the UE Global Campus Nevis site continues to rise. Presently, there are 45 ongoing students. 16 new registrants commenced in September 2023, and several who are already registering for the January 2024 cohort. Additionally, several will be returning after taking a leave of absence. I wish to congratulate our 13 students who recently graduated the UWI Global Campus on November 11, 2023, via a virtual ceremony which was held at the Royal St. Kitts Hotel. Having been awarded Bachelor and Master of Sciences degree in many disciplines, such as management studies, marketing, accounting, youth development, social work, tourism, and hospitality management, and education and literacy studies. We will continue to make a concerted effort to sensitize our people to the tremendous opportunities offered by the UWI Global Campus, which allow them to stay at home with their families and continue their normal daily lives, while at the same time attaining academic qualification at a much reduced cost. Incidentally, Madam President, I was very impressed that a large number of our 13 students achieved first-class honors, and the one student who did a master's achieved a merit for her degree, and so I congratulate them all. We are fully aware that the government has a very important role to play in revitalizing our economy through skills development and entrepreneurship. The rapid advancement of technology is displacing both low and middle-income jobs, contributing to the problems of unemployment, stagnant wages, and the inability to find decent, high-quality work. The problem is exacerbated by the fact that our education system is turning out students who are ill-equipped with the necessary skills and competencies to meet the demand of the labor market. We must remove the perception that technical and vocational education is for low-achieving students by ensuring that the programs are attractive to all students, including those who are more academically inclined. Towards this end, my government embarked on a significant policy change aimed at reforming our education system to enhance the quality of our labor force. We stand fully committed to the expansion of the technical vocational education training TVET at our secondary schools. Our TVET center at the Gingerland Secondary School is now fully complete and operational, offering training in cosmetology, furniture building, and furniture finishing. These TVET centers are projected to function as a secondary and continuing education skills training institution, offering CSEC and CVQ level programs during after-school hours for the wider public, while continuing to facilitate the secondary school students during normal school hours. The most important feature of this TVET program is that students will now be offered training that delivers the urgent and emergent skills needed for economic competitiveness in a modern economy, thus expanding the supply of skilled and employable labor with regional acceptable certification. Once fully functional, the programs offered at these centers will be market-driven and geared towards meeting the needs of the private sector in critical areas such as auto mechanic, electricity and electronics, ICT, hospitality and culinary arts, air conditioning and refrigeration, agricultural science, furniture making, food preparation, welding, landscaping, plumbing, beekeeping, cosmetology, accounting, and building construction. Madam President, in pursuing this TVET program, we must also ensure that students can utilize their skills in the marketplace. Consequently, this administration will not shun its responsibility to create the enabling environment for the generation of employment opportunities for the unleashing of our entrepreneurial spirit. To complement our TVET education program and the teaching of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, commonly known as STEM, we will also continue to be a priority for students and teachers. We have prioritized expanding our STEM activities to include establishing STEM clubs, executing mathematics camps, and exposing our students to digital literacy, with coding being the focus. Overall, Madam President, the Ministry of Education continues to strengthen the delivery of education in accordance with the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal 4, which aims to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education that promotes lifelong learning opportunities for all. This was enshrined in the 5-year education sector strategy that was adopted in 2017. This strategy honors the imperatives as laid out in the OECS Sub-Regional Education Strategy, which takes as its vision, every learner succeeds, and was a key element of the Early Learners Program earlier implemented in the OECS region, funded by US aid. In this regard, I commend the recent study tour to Estonia and Finland by education and IT officials from the administration, and thank Minister Councillor Elsa Wilkin and Brister for facilitating this study tour. Madam President, we must also commend the cooperation between the federal government and the Nevis Island administration, and the generosity of the Winsong Foundation to ensure that every single student on Nevis has access to a computer, tablet, or other such device, and that every school, every community center, and every household on Nevis has access to reliable internet. We shall leave no child behind, and that is our solemn commitment. Now to the critical health sector. Madam President, the after effects of the recent pandemic are still having catastrophic consequences on our health services and our ability to continue to provide the level of service necessary to maintain a healthy society. Added to this is the escalating cost of medicine, which poses many challenges, especially for those who are in the low-income category and are oftentimes more prone to non-communicable diseases. In the wake of these unprecedented global challenges and the rise in non-communicable diseases among younger members of our population, the Ministry of Health has been forced to play an even greater role to help mitigate and modulate these pressing issues. The decisions we make today will no doubt shape the future for generations to come. It is therefore our shared responsibility to pave the way for a resilient and sustainable health system that leaves no one behind. Investment in healthcare, therefore, is not merely an expenditure. It is an investment in human capital, productivity, and societal well-being. A healthy population forms the bedrock of a prosperous and sustainable nation. It is imperative that we strengthen our healthcare systems, ensuring that they are accessible, affordable, and resilient. We must place greater emphasis on health education and outreach, preventative healthcare, and build out a robust medical infrastructure as we seek to empower our citizens to live fulfilling lives and contribute meaningfully to the local economy. As a government, we are continuously called upon to do more, to invest more in an array of modernized health and diagnostic services for our people. While we're being asked to do so, we are also imploring our people to contribute more to the provision of these services. To this end, my government intends to undertake a revision of the fee structure for services offered at the Alexandra Hospital and our other health facilities. This revision is primarily to realign our moderately low fee structure with the cost of providing these services. We are forever reminded that healthcare must be accessible to all. Therefore, even in this new fee structure, provisions will be made for those persons at the lower income level who do not have the benefit of health insurance, so that they are not barred from accessing health care. In the area of diagnostic services, we are now pleased to offer mammograms, echocardiograms, and CT scans. Specialized chemistries such as Hep B, PSA, thyroid function tests will become available in the new year. We'll continue our regular program of free pap smear screenings for cervical cancer. We'll also continue to offer free mammograms, but only until December 31st, 2023. These services available at our hospital are on par with those that can be accessed in major health facilities within the region. We wish to beg our people, to avail themselves of these services as we seek to promote a robust health sector and a healthier Nevis. During this upcoming year, we will embark upon several new initiatives for healthcare. This will include the commissioning of an emergency dispatch project funded by the Four Seasons Homeowners Foundation, where dispatchers will be trained as first responders for emergency calls. We will continue the rollout of the Alexandra Hospital Laboratory Blood Donor Volunteer Drive, which allows persons to register to be blood donor volunteers at the hospital. Madam President, our healthcare system, like others, continues to be challenged by the global shortage of skilled healthcare professionals, including doctors, nurses, and other essential staff. The challenges that we have faced in regard to recruiting and retaining an appropriate cadre of healthcare professionals is hampering our progress in providing an enhanced level of healthcare for all. We continue to incentivize our locals to enroll in the nursing program offered at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College. Our returning medical doctors are also incentivized to pursue further studies, specializing in areas such as surgery, ophthalmology, cardiology, anesthesiology, and internal medicine. We have made some progress in developing a cadre of professionals, but we are still some distance away from having a healthcare system where our own local professionals are the dominant contributors. We anxiously await the return of 2 of our local medical doctors who are studying in Cuba, specializing in anesthesiology and ophthalmology, and 1 medical doctor pursuing studies in the USA, specializing in health administration, planning and policy in emergency health services, along with 1 medical student in Cuba, specializing in dentistry. And may I use this opportunity, Madam President, to encourage our doctors, local doctors. There are a number of them who have come back, young, bright, talented. I am begging them to take the opportunity to go and specialize. The days of having general practitioners and being a general practitioner all your life, those days are arguably over. We need specialists. And it makes no sense to have 12 and 15 local doctors, all GPs, general practitioners, and the government has to import specialists at a tremendous cost to us, housing and otherwise, to bring people in from the Philippines, from Cuba, and from all across the world. So I'm asking, I know it's a sacrifice, but I'm asking our local doctors to make that sacrifice and to go off and specialize so that they can come back and help us build out our health infrastructure. As it relates to our physical infrastructure, I will admit that due to unforeseen challenges, we have been unable to progress as intended with work on our new hospital wing for this fiscal year. All external works have been substantially completed, and efforts are now entirely geared towards the design of the internal layout. I am to report that we have engaged the services of Medical Design Consultants, LLC, a Florida-based company, which has been working to provide quantity takeoffs for the internal aspects of the new hospital wing. The report will serve as a guide to the contractor at the finishing stages and include matters such as recommended wall locations and floor ceilings, appropriate type and location for elevators and air conditioning systems, suitable electrical and emergency alarm systems, proper drainage systems for waste generated from areas such as the laboratory and operating theater, along with other international best practices for equipment and furniture layout. We have been slow in our progress, Madam President, but it was a deliberate action on the part of this government to get it right and to ensure that the right choices are being made and guided by those who are knowledgeable in this field. Once we have received the consultant's report, it is our intention to resume work expeditiously on this project, and we have allocated significant funding in this budget to move this project to completion. As it relates to our program of partnership for healthcare, we continue to be grateful to the government of Cuba for providing scholarships to our aspiring health professionals and for providing trained healthcare professionals on a rotation basis. We are also grateful to the government of the Philippines for facilitating our recruitment program for nurses and other healthcare professionals. We remain exceedingly grateful to Dr. Raymond Hubie for facilitating the robust Nevis eye care program, which continues to provide screenings, medication, cataract surgery, updated equipment, and new state-of-the-art procedures for our citizens. Additionally, we would also like to thank the Four Seasons Homeowners Foundation for facilitating the first responder crisis intervention training for our frontline officers, the Patrick and Lena Drahi Foundation for donating a new picture archiving and communication PACS system for our radiology department, the Pediatric Assistant League, PALS, for items donated to the maternity ward, the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union for donating a laptop for the radiology department, along with the government of Taiwan and Chow Zong-Zi Foundation for donating mobility devices, wheelchairs, walkers, canes, folding commodes for our seniors and those with disabilities. We must make special mention of Urology and Associates for their free prostate screening every January for our men. This year we saw a record number of men totaling 726 undergoing the annual prostate screening. Knowing your status helps in preserving your health. And we have seen that men who engage in prostate screening lower the chances of them having difficulties with prostate cancer as they grow older. We have made, Madam President, and continue to make tremendous strides in healthcare on the island of Nevis, and I commend the team who has been working assiduously to take care of our people. In housing, Madam President, our program for providing affordable housing executed by the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation continues to transform the lives of citizens and residents in Nevis. During the fiscal year, NHLDC budgeted to construct a total of 27 houses at a total cost of $6,675,601.69. To date, a total of 9 homes have been fully completed at a cost of $2,317,993.78, with 18 homes still under construction at an estimated total cost to completion of $4,357,607.91. These houses are built in areas such as Madden's Estate, Cedar View Housing Development Phase 3, Hamilton Estate, Sugar Mill Residences, Ramsbury Estate, Craddock Road, Mountain Crescent Residences, Low Ground Estate, Chimney Crescent, Rice's Village, Bayview Gardens, and Spring Hill Estate, University Heights. For the period 2013 to 2023, the NHLDC has constructed a total of 296 houses at a total cost of $69,594,373.56. That represents, Madam President, 296 families who now have a home that they can call their own. For the upcoming fiscal year, the NHLDC is projected to construct and distribute at least 50 affordable homes with all amenities to prospective applicants. These homes will be a mixture of 4, 3, and 2 bedrooms built on approximately 5,000 to 8,000 square feet of land. The projected areas are Madden's Estate, Cedar View Housing, Phase 3, Hamilton Estate, Sugar Mill Residences, Ramsbury Estate, Craddock Road, Mountain Crest Residences, Low Ground Estate, Chimney Crescent, Rice's Village, Bayview Gardens, and Spring Hill Estate, University Heights. The proposed allocations are as follows: Madden's 26 homes, Hamilton 5 homes, Rice's 4 homes, Ramsbury Craddock Road 6 homes, Low Ground 7, and Spring Hill Estate 2 houses. We have some lands as well that we've purchased at the foot of Brownhill, which I'm hoping the minister will open up and make available in the new year. Fiscal projections. Let's now look at some fiscal measures. You say you want money? Madam President, as it relates to our implementing fiscal measures, this fiscal year we intend to be resolute and steadfast with our revenue collection. Over the past 2 years, we have relaxed some of our measures as we were aware that both businesses and individuals were turning the tide in relation to the pandemic. We therefore gave several concessions and implemented other concessionary measures to aid in the recovery process. These strategies, even though they were quite helpful in aiding the recovery, resulted in a loss of valuable government revenue, putting our fiscal situation in a state of imbalance. It is also interesting to note that even as we were asked to forego revenue collections, we were at the same time called upon to increase our spending in critical areas such as education, healthcare, and social protection through our poverty alleviation programs. Our economy is now showing signs of a rebound in all the major sectors, and therefore, we believe it is time to reduce some of these concessionary measures and get our fiscal house back in order. Therefore, Madam President, this government intends to institute the following revenue recovery measures designed to reduce the accumulation of arrears incurred by various government departments and realign the revenue from essential services with the cost of providing them. 1, we will reassess the rates for electricity consumption to lower the burden now on the government for subsidies on electricity. This will be calculated in accordance with the electricity consumed. The extent of the charge on your bill will be dependent on your electricity usage. and we therefore encourage all to be conservative in their electricity consumption. 2, we will revise the fees for services provided at our health facilities, especially at the Alexandra Hospital, where the fees for meals and other charges are excessively low for people who must stay overnight at our hospital. To put this in context, Madam President, for the House and for the public, we currently charge EC $20 per day for hospital stays at Alexandra. That includes a bed and 3 meals and medication. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and medication, 20 EC dollars. This is clearly unsustainable. We are aware that a growing portion of our population has health insurance, which will ordinarily cover these costs in a large way, and as such, the effect of any increase on individuals, we hope, will be minimal. We will, however, make the necessary provisions for the vulnerable so that their access to health care remains unimpeded. Thirdly, we will reassess prices of items offered at the supply office. This adjustment to the price of these items is driven by the general increase in the cost of buying these items on the international and regional market. And let me just make it clear that all we're trying to do is to balance the cost with the price that we charge to the public. We're not seeking to make a profit. We're just trying to rebalance because the cost has gone up and we're selling still at the old prices, which requires massive subsidies from the government. 4, we shall recommence our regular disconnection program at both Water Department and Nevis. We wish to encourage all of our citizens to be responsible and make the regular monthly payments for the utility bills a priority. Madam President, I must say that our people continue to pay Flow and Digicel first and forget about water and electricity. And I usually marvel and wonder how you could use your phone if you don't have electricity. So they don't want to pay for electricity, but they pay for the phone. If you don't have any way to plug the phone, then the phone is of no use to you. Oh, I'm hearing you go by the neighbor. Or you do it in the office. Madam President, the voices behind me are unhelpful. That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm encouraging our people to do the right thing and to prioritize these essential services, electricity and water in particular. Stop leaving the payment of these things for last. Number 5, we will link the renewal of various licenses issued by the Inland Revenue Department to the payment of your taxes, especially the payment of your property tax. Put simply, as you think about heading to the Inland Revenue Department to renew your driver's license or business license, please ensure that you make payment for all your other taxes that are in arrears, or if you can't pay, please come in and speak to Inland Revenue so that you can come up with a plan. 6, we will reinstitute the issuance of the tax clearance certificate issued by the Inland Revenue Department, which will be applicable to all business entities wishing to conduct any transaction with the administration. In other words, all entities wishing to do business with this government, whether it is providing goods or services or seeking duty-free concessions, must present a copy of their tax clearance certificate to the relevant government department. This certificate will show the state of your indebtedness to the Inland Revenue Department, if any. 7, we will reassess water rates to bring the price of water more in line with the cost of producing such water, so as to guarantee the sustainability of our water system. Again, special provisions will be made for those vulnerable members of the community to ensure that their water supply is not interrupted. Madam President, I laid out earlier in the budget the level of investment that we would have made to upgrade. We are now asking our people to assist us in closing the gap between the cost of providing water and the price at which water is supplied. Number 8, for corporate entities, we will continue to link the annual renewal of the business license to your good standing at the company registry and to your tax status as it relates to your filing of unincorporated business tax, VAT, and corporation taxes. We urge all to be responsible taxpayers and to pay your taxes on time. We have discontinued the practice of granting a waiver of interest and penalties for late payment. We have instead offered installment payment options and expect that persons will undertake the necessary discussions and have suitable installment arrangements put in place and honor these arrangements once implemented. So the House and the public understand, Madam President, what we've been dealing with is that individuals refuse to pay for years, refuse to renew their companies, refuse to file any annual returns. And then, when they need to do some business, they rush in and they say to the government, oh, please waive the penalties and the fines and the interest. And over the years, we have been assisting where we are saying that we are no longer prepared to go down that road. People now will have to be responsible. Come in, do what you're supposed to do. Remember that penalties and fines and interest are only applied if you're late. It means, therefore, that if you file on time and make it a habit of filing on time, you never have to deal with penalties and interest and the like. Be a responsible citizen. On the matter of property taxes, we continue to be alarmed that despite the robust construction sector and the large numbers of properties constructed monthly, we are only seeing marginal increases in our collection of property tax. The officers at the Inland Revenue Department will continue their efforts to ensure that all properties on Nevis are on the tax roll. I wish to urge all to kindly ensure that your property is registered with the Inland Revenue Department and that your taxes are paid annually. Madam President, we continue to make a concerted effort to persuade our people to be responsible citizens and to honor their tax obligations. It is only fair that as individuals and business entities seek to benefit from the economic engagement with the administration, and on the island that they must pay their share of fees and taxes to allow government resources to further fund critical programs. We therefore encourage all taxpayers to file and pay their taxes on time. All of us, as we have heard, must be responsible citizens. We cannot continue to demand of the government more roads, more water, better health care, better schools, and we're refusing to pay taxes. And in our experience, Madam President, some of the loudest critics of the government are the ones who are not paying. We need to get everybody on board. In that regard, I must sound the alarm that certain sectors within our society, particularly some offering legal and other professional services, seem to wish not to pay any taxes, or to otherwise find creative ways to avoid sharing in the responsibility for maintaining our beloved island. Our tax officers at the Inland Revenue Department have been mandated to take all measures available at law to pursue and collect taxes owed to the administration. Madam President, we will continue to extend our existing fiscal incentive programs, such as the First-Time Homeowners Program, which is designed to stimulate growth in the construction sector, our program for concessions for startup business entities, along with our program for concessions for entities operating in the tourism sector, the concession package extended to our returning nationals, and also our program to facilitate the movement of skilled persons into our island will continue. It is our hope that the persons who would receive benefits under these programs will seize the opportunity to make meaningful contributions towards the growth and development of our economy. In addition to the fiscal measures outlined above, Madam President, we will discontinue our COVID-19 relief construction stimulus program. This program was initially implemented way back in September 2020 to provide relief for residents undertaking any form of construction activity, requiring them to pay only the 17% VAT on building materials. We believe that this program is now fully exhausted, hence our decision to discontinue it with effect from December 31st, 2023. We will continue to streamline our policy for tax concessions and limit exemptions from the various taxes only to areas as prescribed in relevant legislation, cabinet policies, or when necessary to be used as a short-term tool to drive the long-term benefits of increases in business activities, ultimately leading to an increase in employment opportunities for our people. We will discontinue the random policy of granting duty-free concessions on vehicles simply because someone is the holder of a business license. Concessions would only be favorably considered where the vehicle forms a critical part of the business activity. The deciding test will be whether, in the absence of the vehicle, the business's core functions will cease to exist. Even as we implement these fiscal measures, in regard to revenue collection, we must also be responsible as a government and streamline our expenditure to avoid waste, duplication, and overpayment for services rendered to the government. We will, however, as I have said before, honor our commitment to grant the last tranche of the 5% salary increase to our public servants with effect from January 1st, 2024. We will also, Madam President, revamp some of our social programs to ensure that the programs reach the intended target groups, such as our single mothers, the elderly, and those at the lower end of the income bracket. Government's role is to help those who are genuinely in need, those who genuinely need that help. And so means testing will be mainstreamed across all government social programs to ensure that already scarce resources truly reach those in need. Put differently, Madam President, the practice of a one-size-fits-all social program, where anybody who, for example, reaches a certain age gets everything free, regardless of their income, regardless of their financial position. We want to phase that out and ensure that resources are dedicated to those who truly need that assistance from the government. We'll continue to suspend overseas travel for all public servants, including members of cabinet, unless those travels are fully funded by external agencies or are deemed critical to the functioning of the government. We'll suspend the payment of increments for the upcoming fiscal year in order to curtail the growth in our wage bill in light of the payment of the last tranche of the 5% salary increase to public servants. In preparing this budget, we have deferred any requests for promotion of officers or upgrade in salaries and wages. In addition, we will defer the employment of new officers to the public service. Where officers have exited the service, we would first seek to reorganize duties among existing staff before employing replacement officers. Put differently, we are asking everybody to do a bit more and to contribute a bit more. Madam President, now that we've implemented our pension scheme for non-established workers, we shall require workers who have achieved the age of 62 to transition into retirement. These workers will not be replaced unless such replacement is deemed critical, and duties, where possible, will be reassigned among continuing staff. The pension scheme now ensures that our NE workers have additional income monthly to support whatever income they might be entitled to from Social Security. Our NE workers, Madam President, are no longer going home empty-handed due to the policies of this administration. These measures are intended to have an immediate impact on our fixed monthly commitments, bringing them within reasonable limits and in line with our revenue projections as we await a more fulsome economic recovery in all sectors. Madam President, as we turn to our fiscal projections, the budget for the upcoming year 2024 is set at $282.7 million. We have allocated the amount of $208.5 million to recurrent spending, representing 74% of the total budgeted expenditure. Having considered the expected uptick in economic activity for the upcoming fiscal year, the administration is projecting to collect the amount of $154.8 million in recurrent revenue, which represents a projected increase of a modest 6% when compared to the projected revenue of $146.4 million for the fiscal year 2022. We expect our recurrent revenue to be augmented by the remittance of at least $66 million from the federal government, representing a share of revenue from the CBI program. This remittance, when combined with our projected revenue collections, as outlined above, will provide a total overall recurrent revenue of $220.8 million for the upcoming 2024 fiscal period. When compared to the projected recurrent expenditure of $208.5 million, this provides a surplus on recurrent budget of $12.4 million. Madam President, the amount of $74.2 million has been allocated for the funding of our capital expenditure program. This represents a 12% increase when compared to the amount of $66.1 million that was allocated for fiscal year 2022. This is largely due to my administration's policy to undertake some capital projects which are revenue generating and others which are an integral part of our growth and development strategy. These were outlined earlier in my presentation. We anticipate that funding for our capital budget will be comprised of low-cost loan funding where applicable and grant funding from regional and international partners. I hasten to say that where the funding is not available, we will defer our capital expenditure. Therefore, Madam President, a summary of resources projected to finance our 2024 expenditure program is outlined as follows. Current revenue, $154.8 million. Projected minimum revenues from CBI, $66 million. Concessionary loans, $13.7 million. Grant funding, $3.5 million. Madam President, while we made these projections, we intend to be very strict with the collection of revenues and will seek to reduce revenue losses by curbing our open-ended concession policies. I wish to reiterate that annual budgets are merely projections for revenue and expenditure. The extent to which we roll out expenditure will naturally depend on our ability to access funding, especially for executing the items as outlined in our capital expenditure program. I wish to assure the Nevision public that we will not be reckless in our spending, and we will only seek to undertake projects if the funding is available or can be accessed at low cost in accordance with our debt management strategy. Where funding cannot be accessed at concessionary rates, we will curtail our expenditure program and carry forward to fiscal period 2025 any projects which were not executed due to their lack of approved financing. Madam President, the major allocations in our expenditure are as follows. The Office of the Premier has allocated funding in the amount of $12.01 million, representing 4% of the total budget. Included in this amount are funds allocated to support our quest for energy sustainability. The Ministry of Finance is allocated funding in the amount of $99.86 million, representing 35% of the total budget. Included in this amount are funds allocated to meet our debt servicing obligations and to fund our newly implemented non-established workers' retirement scheme. The Ministry of Communication and Works is allocated funding in the amount of $41.1 million, representing 15% of the total budget. Included in this amount are funds allocated for our infrastructure development program, namely the upgrading of our road network, maintaining of government buildings, and other structures along with provisions for upgrading our water services. The Ministry of Agriculture is allocated funding in the amount of $19.4 million, representing 7% of the total budget. Included in this amount are funds allocated for our food sustainability and security, upgrading of our processing facilities, and funding of activities for Culture Armor 50 celebrations. The Ministry of Health, Gender Affairs and Social Empowerment is allocated funding in the amount of $48.3 million, representing 17% of the total budget. Included in this amount are funds allocated for providing improvements in the quality and delivery of health care, recruitment of medical professionals, supplies and equipment, delivery of our social protection agenda, and funding the final phase of construction work under the Alexandria Hospital expansion program. The Ministry of Tourism is allocated funding in the amount of $11 million, representing 4% of the total budget. Included in this amount of funds allocated for developing and maintaining our historical sites and other tourist attractions and funding for our quest to achieve sustainability in our tourism offerings. The Ministry of Education, Library Services, Information Technology, Youth and Sports is allocated funding in the amount of $45.9 million, representing 16% of the total budget. Included in this amount are funds allocated for the delivery of quality education to our people, funding our TVET program, funding our program for our youths, along with upgrading and general maintenance and improvement of our sporting and education facilities. Madam President, if you want to know what the priorities of a good government are, you look at the expenditure, and you will see that health care has the largest allocation of 17% of the budget, followed by education with 16% of the budget. Those two areas account for the largest expenditure and demonstrate, Madam President, the priorities of this government. Naturally, the Ministry of Finance has a significant expenditure, but that's largely to do with debt servicing. But in terms of ministerial responsibility, I want to commend. I'm not so sure how the two junior ministers were able to persuade everybody else to give them the most money, but certainly it shows the priority of the government. And now, Madam President, to what everybody here is waiting for, the conclusion. In concluding, today I have sought in a thorough and exhaustive manner to lay out my government's agenda for development over the medium to long term. We do not envision the fiscal year 2024 to be without challenges, but we expect to meet and overcome them. As such, this administration will endeavor to ensure that we are prepared to meet these challenges by employing the tools and knowledge that are available to us through the development of an economic framework that incorporates sustainable resource mobilization and allocation, sustainable debt management, strategic collaboration, and partnerships, all of which will be anchored by the tenets of fiscal responsibility and accountability. Although we have seen a remarkable rebound in our tourism sector in the past 12 months and have seen marked improvements in some revenue sources, we must be prudent and consider the near to medium-term outlook is still filled with uncertainty and unforeseen risks that can hamper our diligent pursuit of sustainable economic growth and meaningful socio-economic transformation. We will continue to work towards translating our economic performance over the past 12 months into actionable policies that will guide our path to more stable fiscal footing for the near to medium term. We will work towards maintaining sustainable balance between fiscal responsibility and economic support for our small and vulnerable economy. We will continue to invest in our economy and our people, as we know it will require time and strategic resource allocation to ensure that the desired outcomes are not only achieved, but maintained and expanded upon. It is a well-established fact that good governance and a stable economic environment are essential for job creation and growth. We have sought to re-establish these principles during our brief period as a newly reconstituted CCM-led administration. The issue of globalization and the opening of the one world market for trade has transformed the way we will do business in the future. This has signaled the urgency for a fundamental change in our development paradigm to that of a new economy which is driven primarily by knowledge, innovation, and entrepreneurship. In this new era, government must now seek to be an enabler by promoting and developing an institutional framework and incentives that promote economic growth and business opportunities. The goal of this government will now be to create policies that will facilitate the transformation of our economy through new and innovative methods. Finally, Madam President, as we approach the one-year anniversary of my government in office, I wish to express thanks to the citizens and residents of Nevis for the faith and confidence they have placed in this government to manage the affairs of this, our beloved Nevis. As a government, we always avail ourselves for constructive evaluation from our citizens and residents. And there are mechanisms in place for our citizens to evaluate our performance and make an informed decision on the type of leadership that this CCM-led administration has provided. I have no doubt that my CCM-led government will gain high commendation for our sterling performance in leading and managing the affairs of this island and for advancing the interests of all of our people. For us, Madam President, people will always matter most. To our people, I continue to express my profound gratitude for the faith and confidence you have placed in my government. May the upcoming Christmas season be joyous, and it is my expectation that you will face the new year filled with confidence and hope for a bright and more prosperous future for you and your families, and indeed for all of our wonderful island of Nevis. Madam President, I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member.